Thank you. So, Tom, if you could come up. Jack. Someone mentioned Stephen Burke. Walter mentioned Stephen Burke. And Taylor, come up. And Abdul Ghani. So, Stephen Burke had to leave. He had actually, this is a show of hands. I'm dealing with this myself. And where's Mike? He helped us move things around today. Mike, we met last night. Well, he's helping. Yeah, you talked about care for your parents. So he had to go home and take care of his mom. I've got issues. By show of hands, because I think it's relevant. Who's got issues helping their parents or you're a caregiver? Just one? Just me and Vicky? Yeah, that's a big issue right now. So Stephen Burke, though, every Tuesday, like yesterday from the airport, gives a briefing. Eli, I know he is the most popular guy. But every Tuesday at your 8 a.m., we do a briefing. And you are all welcome to join, and we talk about what's happening in the world. Yesterday, we talked about Iran. Thumbs up on Iran? What are you? Oh, you're from Iran. Well, is that another former Iranian who has a dual-use defense tech fund gave his perspective on what's happening with it's an interesting times, right, we live in. So, on that, we're going to talk about where should we be investing in the world geographically and across assets. Taylor, I just can't look at him without saying son of a bench. Taylor Bench helped talk about tech and the local and global. I mean, part of that, I thought, why don't we pan out? Because we just spent a lot of time in Riyadh. And I think it's a fascinating, who's been to, well, just first, the GCC region in general. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. And who's been to Saudi Arabia? Most of you. Okay. I think this is just a fascinating place where they got the money, they got the gumption, and somehow they got some Midwest modesty. I know it sounds strange, but they don't think they know it all. And that's partly why you're here, right? You're forming partnerships, and you're a unique force. So I think maybe we'll start with you, Abdul Ghani, and how you see the world, and should we even be thinking about investing with you there? And how do you look at investing in the world? And I think part of that is the Saudis don't want to just give money to Carlyle today. They like to help. They want, unless you're buying into a partnership to help them build their vision, and you've got 2030 and 2040s around the corner. So maybe you just shed some light on that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Can you arrange to get money that can go to the people in this room?
As long as it goes back to...
Yes, it has to be strategic, Jack.
Yes.
Well, make it strategic and practical and not theoretical.
Sure.
Just, how about by dinner time? Can you do it? What do you think?
We'll try with that. By lunch. All right, so my name is Abdul Ghani Al-Hindi. I am from a company called Organized Chaos. So everyone thought Jack was making fun of me on Organized Chaos, but actually they thought you were just giving me a tough time.
Well, no,
Organized
it
Chaos.
turns out you make fun of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
You created the name.
Yeah, thank you.
Based upon your judgment about your behavioral profile.
Thank you.
We assume.
Thank you. Yeah, so the company called Organized Chaos, we invest in diverse industries, from waste management to healthcare to education, but things that has an impact, strategic impact on the kingdom, and not just only on the kingdom, around the world. So the innovation part of that. I come from a family who worked for the last 300 years on trading, from different continents, rice trading, spice trading, and I'm considered as of the last 10 years, the innovator in the family who's innovated by diverting from trading to waste management. So that was that was the joke. The innovation in the family was waste management. No, this is one of the companies in organized chaos. So I want to start by saying that Saudi Arabia is unique, has unique, as it has unique resources, also has unique challenges. And as Mark was mentioning about the countries that what we found, and this is the funny thing, the moment I got into the US, while scrolling through my social media, all the ads I'm receiving are Ozempic for some reason. So I was wondering, is that because I was Googling the best burger in Chicago or somewhere? So really, getting back to the country of Saudi Arabia, investing, the country has a vision, and normally when it comes, a vision comes a united efforts to achieve that vision. So there's no opposition when it comes to making things great together. So everyone is united in the private sector with the government, individual, to achieve that vision. Of course, it's a trial and error on how to achieve that vision. So Saudi Arabia has the vision and also has the resources, a unique resources. And thank you, Khadija, for mentioning also the appetite for change, for the appetite to be a key player, not just only on the GCC region, but also around the world. The opportunities in Saudi Arabia and the way we look at investment has changed from previously. The Saudi money used to go to US and different countries, just invest in the stock or in funds, so on. But now it's changing where even with project with a public investment fund, it has to be a partnership that can come back also to the country and add to the GCC or Gulf region. A lot of industries, I mentioned previously the water sector. Manufacturing is a very hot topic in Saudi Arabia, especially when lack of talent are there. And there's now an opportunity when it comes to robotics and AI to position the country or GCC in the manufacturing region. Tourism, before 2019, around 15 million tourists were in Saudi Arabia. This number increased to 35 million last year. So it's doubled in the last 5 years, with the spending of tourists increase from 15 to 17 billion USD to 40 billion USD. A lot of e-sport and events, and this is, I think, we are going to talk about also the Dome project that one of the companies that, yes. So water, also one of the main challenges in the region. Saudi Arabia is in the top 3 countries on scarcity of natural resources of water, but also on the top 3 country of consumption of water per capita. So how do you see that gap? It's by water desalination. A lot of experience has been built in that field. And actually Saudi companies now wins contract for water desalination in China. So across Europe and different regions, but also in China. This is to show you the level of the maturity of technology when it comes to water treatment. So I'm here. This is my opening on the topic of investing in Saudi Arabia. The way we do the investment is mainly to form partnership and joint venture. We invest on the company in the country it's based on, but also we form joint venture in our countries to grow and add that impact also in the region.
And I think the other part of that is obviously Sam Altman and everybody's courting you, right? Trump,
Yeah.
You have hundreds of billions of dollars that will go to this or that. But I think the innovation, because we were in Silicon Valley and here, I think you're also looking for partnerships where you could tap into innovation. But let's gonna keep it going, and then we'll come back to those themes, because obviously tech transfer is one of them. But Tom, I've gotten to know Tom Brodkovich, who's here sort of by chance, but by design, because his son just graduated from the area, and he's been running a single family office. Now they're branching out. Now they're in several funds, several types of deals, and you're evolving, right? Fair to say, and but the theme is sort of how do you see the world today? Obviously, every family office comes from a different perspective, and where you're wanting to invest is different than others. But just what scares and excites you as you look at the investment landscape?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so hello, everybody. Tom Brakovich. The firm is called DCA, our family office arm. We started about 3.5 years ago, outgrowth of a single family that sold their 50-year-old company. And they were faced with an interesting problem, hundreds of millions of dollars that they needed to put to work, but staring down a multi-$100 million tax bill from selling their company. So we got to work and built out essentially, we're a niche RAA. We do only private markets deals focused on tax advantage investing. And we haven't done anything internationally, so it's all been US. And a variety of real asset deals, so think real estate, anywhere you can think of, different asset classes around the country. Also ag, we've been doing private equity buyouts. We've been doing equipment leasing and financing, and several other things kind of around tax advantage activities. So that's where we are. So I do have, we're in Northern California outside of Sacramento, but I have strong affinity for this area. I lived here for 10 years. I built an aerospace startup here over in Bellevue in the 90s, and we sold to Pratt & Whitney. And it was a seminal event for just my experience and my career. But the last panel was very interesting, just hearing about the growth and what's changed here, over the decades and over the years. I see a lot of that boom and bust cycle that was sort of alluded to, I think, on the panel now in Northern California, right? And it's happening now. It happens every 5 years, every 10 years, and so it's interesting perspective to kind of see, what comes out of those cycles, and, economic efficiency just driving more innovation and new industries and things like that. So I don't really have much to say from an international perspective in terms of, how things are shifting around global markets, et cetera. But, I can talk a little bit, for maybe 2 minutes about what we're seeing on the ag landscape, since we have done multiple ag investments across the country, including down in the Central Valley in California, and then also in Oregon, both vineyards, winemaking, also permanent crops. So think nut farms in California. So we're a big investor down there in that. And just related to sort of the global situation here, it's been very challenging, right? I mean, you see everyone has their own stories around how the bigger macro fiscal policy, the tariff story, whatever is affecting their micro industries or their investments. And, it's very curious, down in California, we spend all of our time kind of worried about water and water rights and, who can get what in terms of, kind of growing crops down there and the value of the land and the value of the water. And, but, it's a global marketplace, right? I mean, 80% of California's nuts go overseas. And, watching what's happening from a tariff perspective has been mind-boggling, frankly. It's very difficult for investors, farmers, and the whole sort of private equity industry around ag, for example, to make sense of what it means. On one hand, you might have retaliation from a big global market player like China, and they tend, China tends to like to go after, constituencies that affect what's happening politically in Washington. So farmers is a great area where they love to target. On the other hand, watching the dollar fall, somebody mentioned kind of the bond market, maybe earlier, right? And that makes our products more competitive overseas, right? So you have India as one example where there's been a huge, pile of demand, coming out of India, especially with falling prices. So it's been very difficult, and I'll just make a case, which everyone I'm sure probably in the room would make the case here too, for stability, around policies. Nut farms as an example, almonds, pistachios, you plant them, but they don't produce for between 3 and 7 years, sometimes even longer. So making decisions on where to actually plant, what to rip out, what to actually emphasize, what to de-emphasize, it's extraordinarily difficult, in environments like this. And so, my plea to everyone in this room is just encourage stability around policies. That is key here. So I'll pass the baton, but.
So our business right now in the university funding space, it's a little bit like the administration took a snow globe and just shook the snow out of it. Because the funding going to universities, everybody is nervous about it, but it's been stable for 40, 50 years. But for an asset class, both locally and internationally, universities are really good at building bolt-on acquisitions. So they're good at creating products or innovation that can be used by larger ag companies, or it's the fertilizer for a nut farm or something like that. And so that's one thing that I think stability-wise, universities have consistently been creating innovation. And I think that'll go on even with the policies, the current policies. Right now, the policy change is more about efficiency and operations and making universities more efficient with the money that they get. So I think there's some opportunity there in terms of what you are seeing as maybe some of the things that scare you in your market.
Yeah, well, your research even suggests that. So why don't we go to the eternal optimist? We'll finish with you, Jack, because once we get to Jack, you never know. In a good way.
Does that mean it's his turn?
Yes.
Yeah, and eternal optimism, especially in days like today in Latin America, you got to have it. I mean, we are long on Latin America. Stability is the key, and that just doesn't exist today, and that's a real problem. It's hurt a number of our businesses. And we're hoping that too is temporary. At least, set the rules, and we all know what the rules are, and we just play by the rules, and we adjust accordingly. You can plan, but when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or in 90 days, you can't plan, and that's very, very difficult. Yeah, I don't want to get into politics right now. Although I will say that the politics in Latin America in general is somewhat moving in the right direction. It's like a pendulum. When I moved down to Latin America, when I moved to Brazil in 1974, Brazil had President General Geisel, Bolivia had General Bansid, Argentina had General Galtieri, Chile had General Pinochet, and so forth, right? And that's all changed. All those countries have changed completely. And they've gone to an extreme. And Brazil went to Lula, and Argentina had the Fernandezes, and so forth, right? So it swung way to the left. and now it's coming back to capitalism and whatnot, more business friendly. You see Colombia is coming out of it as well. But every country is a little bit different. Actually, every country is very different, right? And so the optimism in me is that you have a couple of countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Chile that are very wealthy in resources. And that is what's going to pull them through over the next number of years. Brazil is very strong in agriculture and in mining. Argentina in agriculture mostly. Chile in mining. Some northern part of Chile, the high yield agriculture. Actually, Keith, are you in the room? Vicky's here. Vicky works with Pollen Systems. Pollen Systems has an operation in Santiago de Chile. They plan to go down to Brazil, and they're working with high-end agriculture. And so that type of investment makes sense. We focus on two verticals. So to invest in Latin America, you really need to know where you're going, and you need to be very focused. Yes, you can do general tech investments. That's fine. There's a lot of smart people down there also. But if you really want to be successful and generate a solid, sustainable business down there, you have to know where you're going, you have to have the right relationships, and you have to be very focused, right? So we focus on real estate, property tech, prop tech, and we focus on ag tech. Ag tech just because the market's so large down there. But if you look at Brazilians in general or Latins in general, I mentioned on the last panel that I left Brazil in '88 because of the inflation. Inflation was 80% a month. So many folks in Brazil have this mentality of short-term returns. They do not have, so for them a long-term investment is 10 years. For many years I worked at Weyerhaeuser. And Weyerhaeuser is about planting trees, growing trees. And when you plant a tree, it's going to be 30, 40 years before that tree comes to market, right? The forestry business in Brazil is absolutely enormous. It's huge. It's all eucalyptus because eucalyptus grows extremely fast and you can cut it in 6 years. And that's a good investment. 6-year investment for trees, wood products, et cetera. That's a damn good investment. So that's my take on investing in Latin America. You have to be very focused. You have to have a very specific industry and truly have the right relationships and know what you're doing.
Okay, so Jack's a Renaissance man. By the way, do you know why I often think of him as Ben Franklin? I've said this maybe a few times. Do you know why Ben Franklin was not allowed to participate in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence? They were afraid that he would insert a joke into it. So you're probably going to get a few wisecracks from Jack because he's sort of our modern day Ben Franklin.
Gee, I'm at a loss since I don't have anything funny to say. As a matter of fact, I have something to convey in 3 component parts that is potentially actionable for you right now, today. And therefore, some of you might want to assign a person at each table to take notes in case you want to remember these 3 items. And they're sufficiently important that I'm going to stand up to help you remember what they are. Remember, you're going to help me.
Yep.
So, wait, don't move my chair here. So, I have somebody to lean on. So look, number 1, 4 years ago, Mark and I, along with some 361 colleagues, created 361 Ohio Technology Fund, which was designed to capture investment opportunities at the angel level, so subterranean, below venture or below private equity, not public companies, and in an environment where there's plenty, notwithstanding the perception of that portion of flyover area, and where people are nice. And so nice people, low valuations, robust technology companies in and around Ohio. And that was, as I just said, 4 years ago. Today, there are 32 portfolio companies within 361 Ohio Technology Fund, and one potential unicorn. And in my 40 years in the venture business, having invested in 210 companies, to be unnecessarily precise, this would be the third unicorn I've seen if it comes to pass, but it's in that portfolio, and this ought to inspire you too, to invest. We're opening it up today. We've gotten legal approval to open the fund to anybody in this room who is a member of or affiliated with 361, and you can step in 4 years later, join us in this fund, and the next step would be to just tell me so later and indicate your email address. And,
This is the Ben Franklin moment.
well, I'm a lawyer too, but whatever. Number two of the three announcements, you still with me? Note takers? There's an angel fund in this locale. This is not fly over, but I think it could be labeled fly up. So the fly up angel fund, similar to the one that we affiliated with in Ohio and created our 361 fund. We're going to begin the process with you, Mr. Angel Alliance, to determine the feasibility of creating the same idea, which we've now demonstrated works, by doing a 361 Alliance of Angels enterprise, and you can build on our success, and it's all for free because we're brothers and sisters. And the third point to convey is that Mark has launched an effort to create a national 361 fund of funds, so that by putting together selected angel-related enterprises such as yours, such as the one we've connected with in Ohio, and there are about 272 from which to choose. That's the number of institutionally organized angel funds in the United States. I know you said global. Maybe that should be announcement number 4. But there are 272 institutional angel funds in the United States that all operate under a similar playbook, highly disciplined, kind of surprisingly so. And it's been fascinating for me, as somebody who's been in private equity and venture capital for over 40 years, to now spend so much time in this subterranean world of angel investing, where the valuations are lower, and in some cases, such as the Midwest, the people are nicer, as I earlier said. So this offer has hereby been made. You've seen it and heard it, and you can now help me get down, okay? Sure. And my qualification for this endeavor is, I started my life at Procter & Gamble in brand management, also trained as a lawyer, ran a couple of startup venture-backed companies, each for about 5 years, one in the media business, one one in nutritional foods, and then in 1990 founded Blue Chip Venture Company, and for the last 35 years have done 10 funds, about $1 billion in the 210 companies that I mentioned earlier. And on the basis of that, Mark approached me to create something new and different that could be of appeal to members of 361 and that could endure for a period of time and be profitable as well as fun and interesting for all of us to engage in. And that's this first item of the three that I referenced. So it's available to you.
He'll be here at lunch. Okay.
And
all right.
all you have to do is say so.
I want to get a little conversation going. Thank you.
Now, does that mean I'm finished?
You're done right now.
Well, did I?
You're done. But thank you, Jack. You are, and it's been great. I feel like I've brought Jack out of.
What if there are other topics that people would like about which they would like?
That's what they were about to do.
Oh,
have a seat.
Thank you.
Drop some mic. Okay, he does tend to stand up, usually not on chairs, but you never know with Ben Franklin.
Well, these are bigger ideas.
Yes, true. All right, so you've heard from like an evolving single family, which you're not. There's so many in the single family office space that are now. You're so connected to the funds, and you see opportunities, and it goes beyond your. Let's say the kind of checks you want to write. You want to sort of syndicate some of that, and you're trying to figure out your model. You're doing something interesting thing in the tech transfer, which I was thinking as I was hearing you, as much as I don't agree with some of the politics, sometimes it is probably worth shaking up. Your report sort of suggests that it should be shaken up if we're getting 1 cent to 5 cents, but and really rethink where that's going. Again, we're doing 2 events in Riyadh, and actually we're going to go to Alula. You're all welcome to join us. It's like a retreat type of thing, December 7th to the 9th. There are a lot of great, someone mentioned Milken, and we're going to be with Milken in Singapore. We're going to be, FII is going to have their event in Riyadh in October. We'll have our event. And where's Mark Mueller if he's around? So I'm finally going to do Davos. He sort of inspired me to. I've been intending to do it for many years, so I think we'll do our Davos side events and work together. But yeah, Riyadh to me is this special new relationship. You used this word yesterday or 2 days ago that you catfished us because he's got his partner Arij that we met in Riyadh is it's definitely not a catfish. I think you guys are a great team. So we look forward to working with you and the whole GC environment is fascinating. But we heard Jack's 3 proclamations, the eternal optimist with LATAM. We haven't really talked about Europe. Who wants to make a case for or against Europe? Anyone? I feel like you need to be European, but if you want to, if it's Silicon Valley, you want to say something about Europe? Yeah. Sure, come on up. Well, come. So this is definitely the case against Europe about to be taken.
It's a slow-moving, ridiculous. I spent the last couple of years on a bank board in the UK.
What do you think of Seattle?
Seattle seems nice. Okay. I have a founder here. I have a startup I backed here, so I like the community. But I was on a bank board in the UK, so I used to go over quite a bit, and I was willing to invest there. What I've found is, at least in venture scale models, there are no real venture capitalists there except for the ones that move there from America. What you have are bankers that change their title to VCs. They take no risk. They don't support their companies. They don't encourage innovation, and it's just an abysmal situation. And this is bad because every VC knows that one of their most important risks is their syndicate risk, the other investors around the table. It's like quadrupled in the UK and Europe. The laws are anti-entrepreneurship. Everybody wants to be the next Silicon Valley. None of them will be. You think about list the top 10 most valuable technology companies in the world. 0 from Europe. List the top 100. I don't even know if SAP makes it up into the ranks. Now, if you're investing in infrastructure, right, fine. If you want to buy timber, fine. If you want old-fashioned industry, low growth, reasonable yield, Europe's perfectly reasonable. And, you know, obviously a family office or investor should have a variety of types of things. But if you want truly amazing opportunities for upside, I would stay very far away from Europe.
All right.
It is.
Anyone make this? All right, good.
I mean, not completely opposite. Because some things I agree with.
Okay.
So I worked at Wilshire Associates down in LA for a while. If you guys know who they are, but they're about $1 trillion of AUA. You know, big advisor. Lots of big pension money and sovereign wealth money through there. On the private markets team, we actually built a European venture fund of funds there. This is back during COVID, and it has gone gangbusters. I'm not trying to give Wilshire a commercial. I don't work there anymore. But one thing to your point, where the fellow went? Oh, he just walked out when he heard me. Oh, there you are. So, you know, the price of deals and technology and talent there is probably 1/5 of what it is in Silicon Valley, right? So, I agree with a lot of the macro and, you know, a lot of the problems around, you know, policies and fiscal and the ecosystems and all that, but there are some really smart teams out there, and there are some really smart VCs out there, and we were investing in them, and they were finding tech and things to do and companies out there that, you know, down in the valley you'd be paying god-awful prices for that stuff, and probably it was never going to become a unicorn and probably wasn't going to see the light of day. But, you know, for local, regional markets, you know, getting technology, you know, certain verticals, you know, started and tech enabled. You know, we were finding all kinds of interesting things in Europe. So that's my counterpoint.
Historically, if you look, Skype came out of Eastern Bloc countries. The Nordics had several good exits. You had Spotify, you had iZettle, you had two gaming companies in Supercell and King. But one thing I've learned the hard way, and there are some very good investors there. They tend to, like Benchmark has a group there, there are some. But the vast, there's an interesting set of laws that allow people to raise funds publicly that totally screws up their behavior. One of the things I've learned the hard way is when you go in at a discount, you go out at a discount. You generally tend to have smaller exits. As an example, if you invest in Canada, you get about 50% of your engineering bills paid for by the government. And this seems great until it doesn't quite work out and somebody goes in and does an acquisition of this phenomenal engineering team by giving them jobs. Versus, you know, you look at AI, the companies are all, you get what you pay for. And so it sort of depends on how it's set.
Did anyone want to stand up stronger for Europe?
I have a comment.
Okay. But it might be nice if the Europeans did this.
Well, there's Germans in the room. I'm resident.
Well, they're here for a reason, maybe. I don't know. No, you have to come over here because I can't stretch it.
Okay, so I'm resident in Portugal, so I don't know, I'm not European, but I think there's a lot of truth to what you just said, especially about government funding, and a lot of VCs depending on the European Investment Bank to get capital, and then, you know, you have to invest a certain percentage in each country. But there are pockets, and climate tech, a space that we invest in, is supported in Europe, and you can get a lot of innovation in Europe because of the regulatory environments. So, for example, in Portugal, which is a small, tiny market, or even in the Scandinavian countries, a lot of you know, climate tech is coming out of there. So renewable energy, Portugal leads 65-70% of their energy is from renewables, ag, water, food. No, innovative technology. So interestingly enough, innovative technology. So I think like we can't take a very Silicon Valley lens to everything, and this has been said about, so where I will disagree is this has been said about lots of parts of the world, that the tech is not going to come out of there, and definitely way more tech is still coming out. But when you look at the trends, universities, what we just spoke about earlier, people not wanting to come here, go to Portugal. Every San Francisco bro that left the, you know, the valley ended up in Lisbon. So there's a lot going on. There are people coming from all over the world into markets, and you'll be surprised at the trends, I think, in the future. So that's all I'll say about Europe. Sorry, I'm not European.
No, you're good. Or what about Asia? Obviously, China is neck and neck on AI. Anyone want to make the case for how to invest in Asia? Was that a hand up? All right, come. Someone with a European accent's coming up. That's good. Thank you.
So my name is Pietro Liana. I come from Switzerland. We are neutral. So if you Europe, that is still the question. But so when we speak about Europe, there are also other way to invest, and that means we invest in situation like in crisis, in going in the other direction of investment. So we don't have to think all the time that we can invest just in projects or in companies that goes up. So we have other option that we can also invest in Europe. But it's true, we travel a lot. Me and my wife, we travel a lot from Dubai, Europe. We see a lot of difference. I see UAE is just going fast to not be left behind. And for example, in UAE, we speak about investment. Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia is now. Saudi Arabia is doing the same like what Dubai was doing before. We are in the beginning like Dubai in Saudi Arabia. So to invest in Saudi Arabia is an amazing situation to do that, to not lose the situation, the momentum. But going on that, in general, today it's important that it's not just that we invest in one investment, just in one country. To be successful in all these interruption, wars, and not stable situation, we have to think together and invest together in different opportunities. Because just like this, to bring the know-how together and to invest also international together in diversification is very important today with all the situation that we have today. So I want just to give some comment. Europe, UAE, USA, I think we have to think together today to make it more successful. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments before we're going to, the other half of the team?
Yeah, so I'm very curious because I know we're slicing up the world, but what about, and I don't want to use the term emerging markets, but we're talking about countries coming out of sanctions. So I'm not just for the panel, I'm curious for the family offices and others. You know, when you look at sanctions being lifted from Syria, the situation with Iraq, I mean, Iraq had one of the most, high quality oil reserves in the world. These are super, not fully stable countries, but I'm thinking first mover advantage. I'm thinking anyone who gets there early has the potential with chaos in the mix to really, sort of come out strong. So I'm curious if anyone is looking at those markets. There's more, but those two in particular. And it's, of course, we lump the Middle East together. This is not, it's totally different flavors even between the two.
I mean, I lived in Russia for 8 years, and I was in Bahrain before Dubai, so I know this emerging markets. It's tough, right? If you can make a lot of money, the bar is higher, right? You're looking for a better return. Maybe some of the families, if you have companies that or you're more of a maverick.
Yeah, taking a risk,
yeah.
but knowing fully well.
So we're
IBM did that, right? IBM in emerging markets stayed for 50 years in countries where they barely made revenue. I can tell you other big tech did not do it, but eventually you become beneficiaries. So I'm just curious, but it seems like no one's either thinking or playing in that space.
Sorry, what is the question?
Iraq and Syria and other countries like that. I mean, sanctions have just been lifted off of Syria. I mean, they probably have $500 million of infrastructure needs, as an example. Iraq is a rich country that's mismanaged. I mean, so again, whether you're looking at the country having resources like a Saudi, or you're looking at countries that have opportunities for growth.
I think it's more for the Saudis to be doing this.
And they are doing it, but I'm curious in this room if anyone, because your question was opportunities globally. So I'm just curious because no one mentioned it and whether there's anything happening from this community when you guys are thinking about it, evaluating investments, or even going into funds in the U.S. that are maybe investing there. I just don't know.
So I have a comment.
Sorry, what?
I said whether it's humanitarian, investment, or philanthropic, or otherwise.
I suppose that's fair, yeah. Could someone come up here?
So my one comment is We're in an environment where if you have any government funding in this country, say you're going for a grant now, startups are going for grants. We need to show who has invested. It is, but you have to show who's invested in the investors in the startup, including every LP, to vet these LPs, and it's becoming increasingly difficult. I don't know who's in that situation in the room, but we've had these requests, whether it's angel groups, VCs, et cetera, having to document who are the LPs. So my comment is, if I show up with a bunch of Iraqi LPs, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Yeah.
She's just saying there's opportunity. Like, if you're in hospitality, might be a good time to go buy up all the prime properties in Syria. If you have half of a sense of what the opportunity set is there, I can see that. Or if you have sort of corporate, I think Ukraine.
Yeah,
right.
Mark, I was going to.
Because I was in Russia building up Russia, and I think Ukraine, they're all going to need rebuilding. We're just waiting for the moment. So I think, you want to say
So
something,
Mark,
Greg?
I'll make it.
He makes a grand gesture about everything. Any other questions about? What we're going to do soon is break out into lunch. Lunch is ready for you. You'll come back here, and I'm going to suggest to do, for example, on emerging markets. If you want to be in emerging markets, let's move over to that side of the room. Emerging markets. If you're interested in, we're going to talk about industries, but if you're interested in venture and innovation, stay on this side of the room. If you just want to make income, right? Just real estate, private credit, stay in the middle. These middle tables. Income tables, emerging markets, venture. Does that make sense? Any last questions before we?
Mark, I'll make
Yes.
a couple of quick comments.
Shh.
Make
Listen.
a quick comments,
Yep.
and that is, she's talking about these emerging markets in war zone areas. We just did a panel here at the Rainier Club on Ukraine, and we had the Secretary of Commerce of Ukraine speak at our panel, and a couple of VCs from Ukraine that spoke to the panel. And the U.S. companies that are going down to Ukraine now and looking at Ukraine or studying Ukraine, they're doing it together with the U.S. Department of Commerce. So you've got the U.S. backing that, vets the folks that you would be doing business with in Ukraine. So I can't speak to Syria or Iraq, but I would imagine it would be something very similar, that you would, many of the companies that would go into these countries would go with the U.S. government, right? The other comment I'll make, Mark, is just an observation, really. And several years ago, I was the COO of an AI company called Defined AI, and we structured data specifically in NLP and in speech for large tech companies. And we were opening up an office in Tokyo. So this is a comment about Japan. And this was 8 years ago. And we could not find computational linguists in Japan. Couldn't do it. There was all this talk. Sony had this talk about AI and I don't know what. AI we couldn't get clients in Japan because they didn't have the data scientists truly in the businesses prepared to receive what we wanted to do. It was just, we couldn't get there. Even companies like NTT actually did become a client, but it was difficult, very difficult. Today, just recently went to Tokyo and everybody's talking about AI. And I don't know what happened in the last 10 years. I just don't know. But everybody's talking about, all businesses are talking about AI. And there is a transformation taking place in Japan, and I'm speaking specifically about Japan. I don't know much about anything else there.
All right, so just to your question, and then we'll break for lunch. If you want to find somebody in our network, like for example, this is being recorded, right? We've recorded every Tuesday briefing. We've recorded 1,000 sessions. We have unstructured data tied to your voices. We know if you're interested in Iraq and Syria, we've had that, let's just look up the word Syria. Or let's look at our database, which we're about to turn over to all of you. So you'll have our AI, the 361 AI. It's been in beta testing. You were part of the beta. You're going to be able to log in and connect to capital, strategic capital, or people. Because if I'm going to Iraq, because hell, I spent 8 years in Russia, I can figure out Iraq, I can figure out Syria. I got to find my entourage. You can Google it, you can go to LinkedIn, or you can find it here among our communities. So I just can't do it all. That's why we're going to turn it over to AI so that you all can meet each other, but at least it'll be proprietary. And every time, and you can create, by the way, a deep dive on Iraq or Syria. And that sort of helps you catalyze that if you think that's really important to you. I'm not sure that's, but maybe you're intrigued by it. So what we try to do is form a 360 around any subject on a Tuesday or Wednesday deep dive. I'm sure you all have, you talked about, helping your, being a caregiver, right? There's even a company called Avonlea that's partnered with Walmart. There's all the way around, there's someone in our community that, or like Waveguide is doing something. Where's Brian? Is Brian around from? Right, so tell them come here real quick. This is a perfect example. And then we'll go to lunch. Having a cookie. The food looks good. Let them know what you're doing. And come up here for one second, Nelson.
So I asked this question last night when I think that we were all about 3 whiskeys into it. So if you haven't heard me ask this question before, those of you who know, please wait and see if others can guess it. What's the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States of America? Cancer's number 2, cardiovascular's number 3, or 1. Number 3 is medical errors, medication errors. Most common, it is the most common error that occurs in a hospital. It's the 3rd leading cause of death in the U.S. And it's this cookie right here, which is fantastic, which is not doing me any favors, but it is the most common type of error in death in the hospital.
So your example of that tech transfer from the group that we saw, and then
Yep.
And then what Nelson does, which I thought was competitive, could be synergistic.
Yeah. So again, if you heard last night, we make a really small piece of kit for detecting lots of things. One of the things is fake pharmaceuticals or inappropriately stored pharmaceuticals and foods, and we have a program with jet fuel and agriculture, lots of things. But we're quite synergistic with what they're doing, and they're looking essentially at a software platform that underlies the hospital system to understand what doctors and nurses are prescribing to see if the patient is getting what they're supposed to, and then we could essentially work together and be the last line of defense before it actually goes into the patient. Is this what it's supposed to be before it's injected? And so, the two can play in the same sandbox and provide ultimately a much better course of care for the patient.
I just wanted to show this. What I want you to be able to do is prompt our AI to find people, because then you might find common investors, you might do a business partnership. So and that's from being in a family office for 10 years, because as soon as you invest, that's when everything starts. You have to support these companies, and you need those entourages, or you need to invest to pitch, or let's do it together, kumbaya, but you want to know who you're investing with. So, all right. We're going to break into lunch. Thanks for kicking off an international discussion. Emerging markets. Join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.